Hey guys, this is National Master Kevin Yang back at it with another video. So today we will be talking about the game against Fupalicious. Very new name, but let us just go on. So in the first game of 3 games against Fupalicious, he starts off with d4. I start off with a sort of queen's pawn opening. And after e3, I see that, sort of forming this pawn chain, right? And after knight f6, bishop d3, c5. Now, at this point, I start wondering, okay, is he going to play c3 and make a very solid triangle? So I was like, okay, this is going to be a long game because he's very solid right here. He's looking like a triangle. Knight c6 and f4. And at this moment, I was like, wow, I have not seen anyone play the Stonewall on the white side in ages. And I was like, okay, very interesting choice. So here I made a little bit of an error. I should have played bishop g4 first before playing e6. But I played bishop. I didn't play bishop g4. I said, you know what? I wanted to just get the b6 pawn, get the bishop out this way, and then maybe put my knight to e4 one day. To me, this strategy now feels like a little bit of a mistake because, first of all, white is going to be going ham, going hard on this side, and I'm sort of going to be feeling like I'm positioning my pieces ineffectively on this side because these guys sort of prevent my connection with the right hand side. Hopefully you followed my arrows, or did you follow my words? If you didn't, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I misled you, but you'll see it later in the game. So after knight d2, bishop e7, knight gf3, I played a6 with the idea to play b5. Knight e5, queen c7. So after the game, our opponent Fupalicious said, "Why'd you play queen c7?" And I was like, I don't know. Well, here's the thing. I want to protect the knight, right? So by protecting the knight, we have to also consider, okay, what about the move b5, right? So if we want to execute b5, we want to protect this knight. So I guess right now that is the sole purpose of queen c7, but there's probably more to think about, right? So after castles, I just play b5. I say, you know what? I'm going to just rush down the board in this manner because I know that one day our friend Fupalicious is going to find the time to play f5. So of course, white could play knight f3 and then take knight e5, play f5. If you follow my arrows, then thank you, but if you don't, I'll demonstrate it. So after a move like, let's say, castles, which is kind of risky. Well, no, this is white's move. So after knight f3, black plays castles, knight takes c6, queen takes c6, bring the other knight in, queen c7, and one day white will think about doing a g4, g5, rook f3, no, g4. Think about it this way. Bishop b7, g5, knight e4, queen h5, rook f3, rook h3. That's the kind of attack you will see players do, right? So this is the Stonewall. This is what the Stonewall does, and black's job is to not let that happen, right? So after the move queen f3, I bring out the bishop, and this is the first fatal blow. Now, as you know, sometimes Stonewall players say, we want to execute e4. We want to be like a London, and we want to burst in the center. Except now, there's only one defender of this pawn, and there are two attackers. So what do? I take the d4 pawn. Knight takes, and I play queen takes, which is a mistake because I miscalculated. So here's what in this position, I sort of thought about it. I sort of thought, pawn takes d4, knight takes c6, then I thought d takes e4. Knight takes e4 can easily be countered by queen takes pawn, and after knight takes, bishop protects my pawn, and I'm going to be up material, right? But let's think about it a different way. So we're definitely dismantling the center, but at what cost, right? So white has to play knight takes c6 to prevent the knight from sort of attacking d4, right? So the other point I was thinking was, okay, well, after bishop takes, knight takes, queen takes, we're good. We're in the clear again, right? But I don't know why I rejected d takes e4. I sort of felt like there was something better here, right? So first of all, I calculated, okay, knight takes c6, d takes c3, knight takes e7, c takes d2, knight takes d5, e takes d5, bishop takes d2, d takes e4, queen e3, right? So in this position, I am up material, but do I like my position? Well, I love it, but maybe the two bishops will bring some play for white. So I said, let's look for something better. Right? So you saw the series of captures and all that. So what happens then? So after c takes d4, knight takes c6, I also thought about the idea of queen takes c6, e5, d takes c3, e takes f6, c takes d2, f takes e7, d takes c1 queen, rook takes c1, queen b6, king h1, and king takes e7. Here I thought, well, I am up, 2 pawns? But is it worth it after the move f5? And after e5, f6? Because after g takes f6, there's so much pressure going on the f-file, and our guys aren't developed, and that's really bad, right? So for example, the engine recommends rook c7, because after queen takes c7, queen takes f6, king d7, bishop f5, king e8, queen takes h8. You see, we're still up in material. However, we are under a lot of pressure on the king side, and that's not a good thing. So I sort of felt like, no, maybe that's not it. And then I sort of looked at the idea, what about I don't know, d takes c3, e takes f6. What about bishop, I don't know, bishop c5 or something like that. King h1, c takes d2, f takes g7 now, rook g8, bishop d2, rook takes g7. This is not good for me because I'm really behind in development. I'm behind in correlating my pieces and coordinating my pieces. So after e5, what did I calculate? dc3, e takes f6, and I believe I was going to take. And after takes, I was going to play queen c5 check. Because after king h1, takes, rook takes, queen takes e7, this is the scenario I was prepared to enter. I was prepared to enter a game with 2 extra pawns. Obviously quite ideal, but it's not easy still. So in this position, well, it didn't happen. So instead, let's see what happened, shall we? Our Chesco member, right, Fupalicious, played knight b3, and in this way, I said, let's, there's a square that opened up for my knight. That's the first thought. Now the second thought is, what if I just deliver a check here, right? Then after bishop e3, what about d4, right? Is this something we consider? And I briefly thought, okay, queen takes, knight takes, bishop takes, ef6, cb2, and then it looks all jambalaya messy. And in the end, I decided against this. So play knight e4, make it simple. After knight d4, this sort of diagonal comes into play again. And I utilize the diagonal to say queen b6, bishop e3, bishop c5, go ham on the diagonal. B takes c3, knight takes. At this point, white has to do queen f2, and then I castle. So my goal will just be to advance these pawns, keep the pressure on this diagonal, and then sort of develop my pieces through the c file, since I still have to worry about an attack, but if I just play f5 here and bring my rook out this way, it works out. So then we see after knight takes c3, rook c1, bishop takes d4, rook takes c3, I get the extra piece with the bishop. And no, don't take the rook, because the bishop will take our queen. So that's what's interesting about pins and skewers and all that. So after bishop takes e3 check, king h1, d4, right? And after bishop e4, we're going to take the rook. So Fupalicious said, offer the rook. I took the rook, and white resigned. So let's talk about this game. What really went wrong, right? And surprisingly, nothing in the opening went wrong. It was actually my strategy that went wrong, right? In the very start, I was supposed to play bishop g4, but I didn't. Played e6, locked this bishop in. Wasn't good for me, so I'll keep that in mind. But what the move that really helped me out was the move e4, because I got to break through the center and sort of get the pawns I needed. So this was a really healthy boost. Just to let you know, next time, if you want to execute e4, you got to protect this guy another time first. So I would have also considered the thought of g4, right? g4, g5, queen h5. That's the Stonewall purpose. But that's just another candidate move. But after queen f3 and all that, e4 handed the initiative over to me. And so after this, notice that I should have played d takes e4 here, just didn't calculate hard enough on my part. So after this, knight e4, took advantage of the diagonal, went for it, went for the piece, went for another piece, and took my gift. So, thank you for listening. Hope to see you in the next video.